All right, next major update on the cabin raising project. It's a slow process. I'm using a Laren 8-ton bottle jack. It's going okay. This handle sucks. Two things. Number one, it's just not long enough. So getting leverage on this thing is a little bit of a challenge. The metal is probably on the small edge of being thick enough. The major problem is that guy there is supposed to keep the handle from going all the way in to this other piece. Well, it's pushed in flat. I don't know if you can see that. And so what Laren really needs to do with this thing is exactly what it's doing now. You can see that pin is all the way through and touching to the other side. So this pin should be long enough to push it through the entire pipe and then extend out the top however far they want it to stick out. That's what they should be doing. So what I'll end up doing is I will drill a hole right here and put in a sheet metal screw or some type of metal screw to mate with that, and that'll probably solve that problem. But yeah, that handle's worthless. Otherwise, it's not bad. I wish this top was wider. You really got to be careful with this thing to make sure that you are very perpendicular to the surface that you're trying to lift, which has been a challenge because the ground's been compacting and it'll never compact evenly on you. So it's been a long process. Basically trying to level out the ground, put some pressure on the jack, get the soil to compress, tear everything apart, re-level it, and just keep repeating until you get a pretty stable base underneath to get this bottle jack going. I'm getting close to the point where I can get underneath the cabin better, and that's certainly going to help with getting a proper lift on it and not worry so much about the jack spitting out from under you, because it's happened a couple of times and it's a pretty violent process. So you really got to be careful to make sure that you're completely vertical when you're lifting. So coming around the back, made a lot of good progress today, not really in height, but just in stability and in lift points, and getting all the blocks and stuff underneath the cabin. And then you can see here where the cabin was sitting on the ground, it is nothing but rot. The floorboards are right here. They seem to be in decent condition. It's probably a good thing I'm doing this now and I'm not waiting another year, although lifting this thing in 2020 is probably not a smart thing to do based on how things are going. But here's one of the boards. As you can see, it's just nothing but rot. So the project will get a lot more complicated once start getting that stuff replaced. So back here, I'll start to be able to get my final lift point going. I'll have to grind down all them nails. So that'll be next week's project. Initially, I'll just do where my lift point's going to be, and I'll leave the rest for later. The goal is to get this thing up in the air and stable off the ground, and see how long that takes. It's been a very long process. This corner is the best in terms of a good lift point. So it's coming along. Stack of shingles that once I reshingle the cabin, we'll get rid of them all at once. Right now, it's got them stacked up on a pallet. Try to keep it at least somewhat nice around here. The front's got some work yet to do to get the final lift points installed. There'll be 4x4 sheets of plywood, 3/4 inch plywood. I'll double that stuff up, and hopefully that'll prevent the cabin from sinking too bad. But you know, when they installed this cabin, they should have done what I'm going to do, so you can see how much that sunk. Probably about 5.5 inches. But I'll get those concrete tube formations on each of the corners, probably 8 inches in diameter. Get the cabin up off the ground, because this is really just sitting on a gravel base, and the soil's clay, so it's not gonna stay put. I don't know if it's enough light under there to see, but you can kind of see under there that there's a board that goes all the way across. It's totally rotted out, and it's broken in the middle. So, not looking forward to working underneath the cabin, but it's something I'm going to end up having to do. Probably need to wait for 2021 to make that move. But this corner is by far the worst. It's getting the most runoff from the hillside. I'm guessing almost 7 inches that thing has sunk. And it's actually worse in this corner, but it's hard to measure at this point because I got all the blocks going. And you can kind of see how this compaction problem is. You can see all those blocks are not really squared up anymore. So I probably need to clean that up before I leave for today. But there's a couple of companies here in Wisconsin, southwest Wisconsin, that I contacted about doing this job for me, and it was probably going to be $10,000 or $12,000, and they weren't really interested in doing it. And so I told the guy to call me back, and he never did. So I'll do it myself, I guess. But it's going a lot better than I thought it was going to go. At least out of 3 out of the 4 corners. And so that corner there has been a total pain. Just because the soil compaction has been pretty incredible. So hopefully progress will start moving fast now, and I'll get this thing up and stable, and maybe even start tearing apart the flooring underneath and rebuilding that for the upcoming hunting season. Because once hunting seasons gets nearby, it's going to be it's going to get put on pause. So, well, start cleaning this mess up, and I got to go cut some grass.